Yeah, so that's just be running there anyway, so it's just fine. It'll seem like it goes off, but it keeps recording, which is great, I think. Yeah, should be fine there. Great. Oh. Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm fine. Thanks.
That's good. You can keep looking at me anyway, so it's fine. You haven't got to worry about the camera.
Yeah.
So hi Joe, give us your full name.
Mohammed Yusuf Dar, D-A-A-R.
Brilliant, that is wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us. So what I want to do today is I just want to find out about your particular journey from being a police officer in Tanganyika, working at GEC, being a police officer in the UK, and then being a private investigator. So first thing I want to ask you is, where were you born?
I was born in Nairobi, Kenya.
Okay. And I've read, obviously, that you then moved to Tanganyika. What brought that about for yourself?
My parents were already living in Tanganyika, but my grandparents, they were in Kenya, Nairobi. So every time my mother was going to have a baby, she used to go to her mother's house, and that's how I was born, and all my other brothers and sisters were all born in Nairobi, but we all lived in Tanzania.
Okay. So for you, did you stay in Nairobi long then when you were a child, or did you just, once you were born, you just came straight back?
Just for a few months. When she, I think, usually went for about 5-6 months and then returned back.
So for you, so you were brought up in, what's correct, Tanganyika, is it? Or?
No, it's Tanganyika.
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 Tanganyika. So for you, what was life like growing up in Tanganyika?
Tanganyika was heaven on earth. That's how it was. It was a lovely place. The weather was beautiful, and life was so easy. You just seemed to grow up peacefully without any problems.
What kind of things did you enjoy about it? Because obviously there's things like Mount Kilimanjaro, you've got the wildlife, you've got the markets. What for you really appealed for you growing up there?
I don't know, yeah, it's a mixture of everything. Kilimanjaro, I've been right to the top. It was part of our training with the police force that we had to climb Mount Kilimanjaro. The schools were all you could take any languages in there. You could take Punjabi, you could have Urdu, have Gujarati, whatever you want. The basic medium was English. So we were all educated in English, but we had, and with our friends, we could talk whatever language they were talking. Our Gujarati friends, we spoke in Gujarati with them. Punjabis were always Punjabis. And life was, we were one big happy family there.
For you, what did you want to be when you were younger?
Well, I've been reading detective stories,
okay.
And I always thought I want to be a detective. So when I finished my O-level, I decided to join the police force. And the headquarters was in Dar es Salaam, which is the capital city. I was in a small village called Arusha. So to travel from Arusha to Dar es Salaam to go for this interview, which I did. And I passed the interview. Unfortunately, when he asked my age, I was not 18, I was much younger than 18, about 17.6. And he said, sorry, we can't take you because you have to be 18 years before you can join the training. But my interview went so well, and he was so much impressed by me. He said, oh, don't worry, you start now, and while you finish the training, you will be 18. So I became the youngest inspector in the history of the then Tanganyika Police Force.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, the youngest. So you talk about books that you were inspired by. Were you thinking next James Bond, spy as well, or?
It wasn't, James Bond wasn't there in that time, but with the detective stories, enjoyed that. But then we had the training school, which was in another town close to where I was, about 50 miles. That's where the police training school was. So as soon as I passed the interview, they sent me to the training school. So I stayed there 6 months, got trained, and then they finally sent us back to headquarters in Dar es Salaam. Stayed there a couple of weeks doing another training, and from there we were distributed to various parts of Tanganyika. At that time, I happened to go to Mwanza, which was another city, and I stayed 2 years there in Mwanza doing the police job.
So this was without your family, this was just by yourself?
I was a bachelor then, not married.
So where would you stay? Would it be in police accommodation?
Yeah, we stayed in everywhere they had police accommodation, and we stayed in the police houses.
So what was that first day? Do you remember what the uniform was that you wore?
The uniform as a trainee, it was more of a constable uniform, not an inspector's uniform. So you had a sort of a pea cap, a grey t-shirt or a shirt, and then shorts. We always wear shorts there.
So what kind of, a peaked cap was it, did you say? Or
no, it was like a round cap.
A round cap?
Not
a beret?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, what colour was that?
Khaki.
Okay, yeah. So it was that. And what was that feeling like for you the first day that you put it on? Were you kind of wearing it with pride, or were you going, oh my gosh, what am I wearing?
No. Yeah, I had the pride because I was selected. I was there for the training, and I knew the training would be only for 6 months, and then you'll be into inspector's uniform.
Oh, so straight that quickly before you became an inspector?
Yes. When you finish the training, you become the inspector.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how different was the inspector's uniform, or what was added to the inspector's uniform?
Well, inspector was much smarter.
Okay.
You had again the tunic, complete tunic, either shorts or trousers, and you have the badges and everything. It looked much smarter.
So did you have a routine, when you put on your uniform, where you go, I'm putting this on first, then I'm putting that on next? Did you have a routine, or did you just quickly put on whatever you wanted to?
It depended, what time the duty was. If you had short time, then you rush and get it in. And if you had more time, you'll take your time and get ready. Yeah.
But there was no set kind of routine in terms of doing that. No. In terms of like with the tunic that you were wearing, were there buttons on it? Were they kind of...
Yes, there were buttons all with Tanganyika Police written on it. There was a whistle, and in those times we didn't have much, the whistle or the truncheon. Those were two weapons, that's all.
Okay.
Yeah.
So with the truncheon itself, was that kind of quite similar to the British truncheon that you later found out, or was it kind of quite different, almost like a stick?
No, it was similar to that. Similar to
was that quite a thin truncheon in those days, or was that?
No, it was quite thick.
Thick.
Yes. It was quite thick.
And did you ever have to use it?
No.
No.
No. No.
No. Just used your words to calm people down.
Yeah, that's it.
So when you became the inspector, again, you must have been one of the youngest inspectors ever.
Yeah.
Another first.
I think so. Another first in those days, but because we didn't have that kind of records anywhere. It is what the commandant told me in my interview, because they was reluctant to take me in because I was 6 months younger than 18, which was the age they used to take us in. But then when he told me, it's okay, you'll be all right after the 6 months training, you would have achieved 18 years old, and that's okay by me.
Wow.
It was the interview that really impressed him.
Really impressed him. So you mentioned that the equipment that you had a whistle.
Yes.
Was that a metal or plastic or what?
A metal whistle.
A metal whistle. Yeah. You had your truncheon.
Yeah.
And did you have a notebook? Was that your kind of...
No, we didn't have notebooks in those times.
No?
No.
So if there was a crime reported as such, what was the routine, or what was the process?
Routine was, whoever you get, you bring them to the station, and then you sit down and do the reports, interviews and things like that.
And that's where you would make the notes?
Yes.
And you were using pencil then, or
Big pens, I think,
big?
over there. Yeah.
Oh, big pens in that particular time itself.
Yeah.
So if you were patrolling, I don't know, as an inspector, what did your role entail? Was it more a case of managing where you were and managing other people, or was it actually going out?
Yeah, as an inspector, my first transfer was in Monza, and there I became in charge of the shift in the police station. There are 3 shifts, so each shift has an inspector in charge, and they had a sergeant and few constables underneath them.
Okay.
So that's how it. And my very first case, because we were trained as inspectors, but practically we didn't have the knowledge. So we had to depend on the sergeants and the constables to learn from them in practice what should be done and shouldn't be done.
Oh, okay.
My first case, when I was in Monza, I was in the police station, and this man walked in with his left hand in his right hand, and they put it on the counter. I looked at it and I was shocked. And then I asked the sergeant, I said, what do you do? He said, you just give him a medical form and give it to him and tell him to go to hospital. I said, but hospital is about 2 miles from here. Can't we take him in police car or anything? He said, just ask him where he's come from. So I asked him, where are you from? He said, Bukumbi, which was about 12 miles from the police station. He said, has he walked from there? He said, yes. He said, if he can walk 12 miles, another 2 miles won't hurt him.
Gosh.
That's how it was.
A hand on the counter.
Yeah. Somebody has cut his hand because I think they get drunk there and they have a fight.
Did you have to investigate that, or was that the end of the matter? You kind of like...
No, the next day shift, because this was in the evening, and the next day shift, they take over, and whoever can go down, because he knew who has done it. So whoever was there to take over the next shift and go and find person.
Mm-hmm. Did you ever have to deal with any animal cases? Because
yeah, that was later on, after becoming in charge of the station. Because I was young, another officer decided to take me under his wings, called Mr. Rhys Davis. He was a terror for traffic offences, and he was known throughout Tanganyika for being strict. And
so with traffic offences, this isn't motoring driving?
Motoring driving.
Oh, motoring driving.
Yeah, like a whole traffic section. And he was in charge of that traffic section. And then I joined the traffic branch. So I worked with him for 2 years, and he taught me all about traffic, driving and everything. And from there, from Monza, I got a transfer to Arusha, which my own hometown.
So with the traffic offences, what kind of offences would people get? Speeding or driving?
Speeding, well, there was very little speeding because most of the speeding there was done by constables who were on the motorbikes.
Okay.
And they used to follow you for a distance on their speedometer and see whether you're driving or not. We had mostly stolen cars or accidents and things like that. You had to go and investigate all the accidents, find out whose fault it is, and then you have to take them to court, charge them. You used to be the prosecutor.
As well? You were the prosecutor as well?
The prosecutor as well, to go there. And
so you kind of almost had a double role, not only in terms of being a police officer, then you went and prosecuted them as well.
Yeah.
And so you were standing up in court before a judge presenting your case.
Yeah. And prior to that, even if we had to go and investigate something, it wasn't very as easy as we had here in UK. In UK, if there was a murder here, in about 10 minutes or half an hour, they'll set up a police station. They will call scene of crime people, camera people, and investigating officers. You have a team of 50, 100, 200 people there. But in Tanzania, when there was a murder, you go to the scene. It took you about 2 to 3 days to reach the scene. By the time you go there, the body is half eaten behind us. You only got the half the body. You go there, you're the cameraman, you're the crime of scene expert, investigator, everything. You stay there in the bush for a couple of weeks, find the culprit, arrest them, and bring them back.
How, I mean, do you have a case of whereby, how easy was it to get the culprit? Was it, did the communities talk? Are you talking about, when you're talking about going out into the bush, talking to tribal leaders, or is this?
Yes, that's how it was. You talk to the people, you talk to the tribal people, and they were very helpful. You know, if they known the police is looking for somebody, they will find a person for you and bring them to you. They say, this is your culprit. And you sit down there, take statements there, whatever, complete the case, and then bring them.
So was language ever a barrier? Because there's quite a lot of different tribes. There's not like one or two.
Yeah, but most of the people, they spoke the local language, which was Swahili.
Okay.
Yeah. So after, when I came back from Mwanza to Arusha, that was my hometown, I found out there was a vacancy in a stop theft preventive unit, which I applied to join, and I managed to get in. Now, what was happening in this unit, they were strictly dealing with cattle thefts. Because of all these tribes, for them money and wealth, everything was the cattle. So one tribe would probably, or one individual will go and steal cattle from somebody.
And this is from a farmer or from?
No, from the tribal.
Oh, from other tribes.
Other tribes. They'll steal the cattle, and then either the same people whose cattle is stolen, they'll follow the track, and they will follow the track and reach into the village where the tracks have sort of lost. So it is the responsibility of that village to find out where the cattle has gone. To prove themselves innocent, they will have to find the track further leading to another village, or call the police and get the police involved. He said, this is where the cattle tracks ended. Now it is their responsibility. So it was your job to start investigating, find out, find the culprit, arrest them, get the witnesses. If you are there for a week, 2 weeks, you have to feed them all, then go and shoot.
Oh, you would have to feed the tribe?
Yes, because we have to go and do some shooting, kill some deers or something, and distribute the meat, so they are there.
And would you have to kill the deer then, or would you have to
Yes.
get... So you had a gun as well then?
Yes, I had the gun, police gun. And I used to...
So this is like crazy. So you not only are you talking about doing everything, you're talking about doing extra things where you were a huntsman.
Yeah, because as I said, it was very difficult. By the time you reach the scene, it takes you 2 or 3 days traveling there in the Land Rover. So when you get there, you can't just leave everything and come back. You have to sort it all out. Now, there always used to be tribal clashes, because as soon as they have seen, they followed the tracks, gone to another village, and people in the village now, they all get together. They want to know where their cattle is. If they can't find the cattle, they probably start fighting between themselves. So for that reason, this stop theft preventive unit was made. Prior to this, they had a field force there, and that field force was a big group, and every time they had to go out, they had to take 10, 15 vehicles, about 50, 60 people. So they used to go to the scene, and by the time they go there, everything was settled, dispersed, and the government had wasted a lot of time. So what they did was they formed this new unit, and they trained them and gave them all the necessary equipment to stay in the bush for several days. The main man in charge was somebody from Scotland, Mr. Keynes, and under him there was a South African, Mr. Baker. So when I joined them, it was coming to the independence, and they both knew that they would have to leave and go. So what they did, they trained me.
Okay.
Mr. Baker, who was a more operational man in the field, he taught me all the tricks to do the operations, how to investigate, how to talk to them. Mr. Kane was administrator. He knew all how to write all the reports and everything. So I learned from both of them. And our commandant, obviously they don't want to go out in the bush middle of the night or stay 2-3 days. So they put the responsibility on my shoulder. So I could go and do work on their behalf, but still bring back the results.
So where would you sleep? You would sleep in the
We
Land
used to have
Rover?
tent, in the Land Rover we have a tent. We had literally folding chairs. We had a fridge as well, radio. The only thing we had for communication was a radio. This is a radio with a big area on the Land Rover.
So was it quite scary in the sense of, say you've gone into a village and they may have taken the cattle? Obviously they're going to be quite hostile towards you, deny everything, almost threaten you without threatening you. That must have been quite a difficult situation.
It was very, very difficult, especially, when the proof was there and the other party wouldn't agree to anything. And then they would start a clash. And what they did was get several villages to take their side, and the other party will have other villages. So instead of where there's only about 50-60 people involved, you got about 200-300 people this side, another 200-300 people. So you're literally sitting between a war, between a tribal clash between two.
You're in the middle.
You're in the middle. So it was your job to stop them. So,
and how did you manage to kind of?
Well, most of the time, you start talking to the elders because everybody listened to the elders.
Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, no, come on in, auntie, come in.
Yeah, are you taping now? मैं के ओ हूवर कर रही है तानु चाहिए तो बजा दे.
बुझा दे.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
Lenny,
So you're saying you had tribes on both sides and you're there in the middle.
Yeah, and if you think the things are really going to go bad, that was the communication over radio, car radio, and then you ask for help, and then the field force will come down.
Not necessarily the same day.
Not necessarily take 2-3 days, but you were there.
So when you were investigating, so obviously, if say that the trail had taken you to one village, and then there's no cattle because you can't see any other trail, how did you go about? Tracking?
Because it was the responsibility of that second village where the tracks ended.
Okay.
And if they couldn't find, the tracks, they will have to send their scouts out to see where the cattle have gone or who has taken.
Yeah.
If they found the culprit, they will arrest him and bring it to you and say, these are the people they had to admit there.
Did people ever give you strange explanations? Aliens came.
It's very difficult to admit these things, but Mr. Baker taught me how to get confession from these people, from the main tribe was the Maasais. And when I came here first, when I had a culprit or suspect, you sit down with him, you offer him a cup of tea and things like that. But up there, it wasn't like that. As soon as you come across, your constables have arrested this man and brought him, he said, he's the suspect. So I go up there to him, I have a gun in my hand, the old rifle, and we just hit him with the butt, straight. And then he starts talking.
Okay.
And if he wouldn't talk, Mr. Baker had dug a very big hole, and there were snakes in the hole. So you tie him up and put him down that hole. And even if he's only gone about 5 yards in the hole, he will start speaking, not only about that particular theft, but all the other thefts he's done in his life.
Gosh.
That's how the life
Confessions, yeah. It's so as you say, it was part of the training and something that you were taught. In the snake pit, as such, were there poisonous snakes or?
Most, I don't think they were poisonous.
Okay.
But they were there to scare the Maasais, and they don't like that kind of
Gosh. What about in terms of your own interaction? Did you then start mixing with the tribal chiefs? Were they always helpful? Or
Yes, they were very helpful. Yeah.
Just in terms of providing information and what have you?
Yes, because we put the responsibility on them, being the tribal chiefs. I said, this is your responsibility. I've come up to here. This is your responsibility. You have to find, as I said.
So what would happen then? So say you've gone to the village and it's clear that the cattle is here in this village. Yeah. Do they either return the stock back? But if there's no stock, do they give them financial compensation? What would happen?
Then we had the courts, the local courts in that village. It's a small court where, you take the matter into the court and let the head of that village, they decide what the punishment is going to be. If they are to be sent to prison, then we have to take it with us and say to prison. And otherwise, if there's any compensation matter, they finish it there. Okay. If there was no smaller court, then I would bring him back to the nearest big town there and take him there and start the proceedings there. And we had to be lawyers there.
So in the small local courts, were you prosecuting again then?
Yeah, we would prosecute.
So you'd go, this is the evidence that I found, this is what's here, and so it clearly points that the trail points to this particular village itself.
Before most courts we used to do this in English, but then there has to be interpreter and things like that. But then to save time, we would prosecute in Swahili, because that was the language we were all speaking there, and just take it to the court and see what the outcome is.
Yeah. Did you have, in the UK, there's that thing, I'm arresting you or I'm charging you. Was there a similar thing that you may have said in Swahili or even in English, or was it just a case of
I don't think, we didn't have anything like that. Yeah.
Just you're being arrested.
Yeah, and that's it, yeah.
Yeah. Is it Jambo? To say hello?
Yes, to say hello there, Jambo.
Mm-hmm. And how many different tribes were there in?
Well, there are lots of tribes, and it all depended. Certain Maasais, in the north, the Maasais were very popular and they were everywhere. And then as you go away further, but the cattle theft were mostly between the Maasais. They were the ones, and any other tribe, if they had the cattle and if they had that kind of a problem, they wouldn't go to follow the tracks. They will come straight to the police and say, this is a problem, and we will take it over from them, because they couldn't afford to have fights between tribes there.
What was the reason behind the cattle theft? Was it bravery, bravado? Was it the money, survival, or I
think cattle was a money kind of thing. In those tribes, the wealth of everybody was considered from the amount of cattle they had, and even when they got married, they had to give cattle away as a dowry.
Okay.
Yeah. And even for their food or milk and things like that, they needed the cattle. So cattle was their whole life, the whole money and everything.
Okay. So hence it had a lot of value in terms.
So if somebody stole it either for food or to sell it further, that's how the clashes started.
Do you know what type of cattle it was in this?
It's cows and goats, and mostly cows.
Okay. What type of cows? Do you happen to know what the name or what type? No. I just thought, just in case. Did you ever come across a case whereby, in terms of the cattle theft, it's clear that the cattle has left, but then it hasn't gone to a village? Were there borders where you kind of, it's crossed the border? No, it hasn't crossed the border. Were there clear, distinctive points? So it's almost like, well, we don't know where the cattle's gone. It's gone to the edge of the cliff and then it's vanished.
Yeah, this has many times happened, but we had to, sit down with the elders and talk to them, and try to explain to them that we'll be looking, and it will be investigations will carry on, and if you find something, come back to us, and that way how we cool down the matter.
What did you enjoy there in Tanzania in being a police inspector? What was good for you?
I don't know. So it was a life itself, you know. It was so easygoing life. I know I worked hard. We used to work 24 hours a day. For us, there was no, in the police force, there was no timing. They could call us anytime, daytime, nighttime. It didn't matter at all. But as I said, I did 3 years work with this STPU. And that my life with STPU was the best one there. It was like I was the Uncrowned King of Tanzania. I could go, as far as work was concerned, I really worked hard. And as I said, I could hire a plane if I want to spot and go and look for the cattle where they are. To investigate it, I could hire a plane. I could go and live in any hotel, just sign the name. I could go and buy any food for my prisoners or staff or whatever. I could do anything, literally. So that's how I was known there, the Uncrowned King of Tanzania.
Wow. It's almost like you had the freedom to, gosh.
Yeah.
That.
And then it used to me, a lot of visitors, of course, came to Tanzania to look for the game. And you came across a lot of people from abroad, America, Canada, and other countries. You met them, you talked to them, you know, I helped them, a lot of them. But, you know, there were people who were writers looking for stories. There you are. A lot of witchcraft murders I investigated. I gave them the stories. They were quite happy and went. And as I said, you know, life was great.
Yeah. As you said, the Uncrowned King.
Yes.
Wow. Lovely title. Was there, maybe I'm just talking in terms of the political element, maybe a little bit. There were elements of segregation, but it wasn't part of the constitution as such where Asians or Africans had to be separate, but there were communities that were really segregated. Am I right in saying that?
I don't think so. You know, while I was there, as I told you, we were all together. The whole Asian community was together. If there was anything to happen, we would all get together. Temple, mosques, you know, we churches, we went everywhere. We didn't have to wait and ask anybody, you know, anybody needed any help. They all came to us. The only problem, obviously, we being Asians, we treated the local Africans as servants, because from the time of the British people there, Africans were mostly doing the menial jobs, and they were mostly hired by Asians for their convenience as servants. And obviously, as independence came, they were getting more and more frustrated that we were not getting the things we had, like old houses, cars, and things like that. And that made them jealous. And obviously, they started a lot of thieving and killing and things like that. That started. And when Tanzania got independence, they became even bigger nuisance, because they'll be looking at the houses and say, I need that house. You know, as soon as you leave here, we will be moving into that house. So we all had mostly British passports, and we were given a choice either to take up the nationality of that country, Tanzania, and stay there as Tanzanians, or leave. But because the political situation was not very good, we decided to leave. And I was the first one to leave, and I came down here in England to look around. And we were a big family, 6 brothers and 3 sisters, mother and father. So I came down and started work here. And
that must have been a really difficult decision for you in the sense of the uncrowned king
Yeah.
and then suddenly having to make this decision about going to a new environment that you haven't been in before and trying to settle here with your family. You don't know what the situation. What was the big turning point? Was it the uprising by the African community, obviously, who wanted their independence? What
Yeah,
kind of what was that thing where you went, you know what, we need to do this?
Yeah, because after the independence, things started getting, I won't say bad, but they were not comfortable. And every time they had the meetings, they would come and knock on Indian houses. Say, someone come out, let's go to the meetings. You go into a crowd of 5, 6, 10,000 all blacks there. You're worried, you don't know. So it was like worrying about your life. You don't know what is going to happen next day. So it is because of that we decided, okay. So because we had the British passport, the only place that says welcome home was Heathrow Airport. So I ended up here.
Just a little bit more about Tanganyika, really. Was there that 3-tier system where you had the colonial powers, which are the white powers at top, then you had the Asian community, and then you had the black community. Was that the same in the police force as well, whereby were there any black inspectors, or was it always a case of no, you're doing the menial jobs, you're the servants?
Up until independence, I don't think there were many black, but immediately after independence, there were a lot of, like overnight, they were sergeants and they were made into inspectors, and yeah. So it quickly, within a year or 2 years, it completely changed the whole structure. The white people, they already left because they had contracts with good compensation and everything. So they took their choices and they left. And the Asians, obviously, the Africans came to the same rank as Asians. And Asians like me who decided, the future doesn't look very good here. We better move. So we moved out. I mean, there were still other Asians left behind, but there were those who were born there and had no option but to stay there because they already had the nationality and they couldn't come here.
So did you have property there, and did you just leave the property, or did somebody?
No, we didn't have any properties there now.
Okay.
But people who had properties eventually had to leave them or sell them very cheap.
Okay, because they felt threatened.
Yeah.
So they had to do that. For yourself then, coming into the UK, what were you expecting?
Well, I don't know, because we have sort of lived under the British rule there. For us, the language is the main thing. We could all speak English. So when we came here, that wasn't much of a problem. I arrived, I had my cousins who were staying in London. They had been before, but they were like nurses already working here. So I came to Heathrow and then took a taxi and went down to where they were. And they were quite pleased to see us there. And that's where the life started. The good thing was, as soon as I went, my cousin says, oh, we had a long journey, come and have a shower. And it was winter time. I came here 7th of December. And he says, oh, there's nothing like home. At home, you have to get fire, put some hot water, and then you go and mix with cold water, and then you have your shower. Here, just open, and it's nice warm water. So that's fine. And we went into the shower. I tried, there was a geyser there, I tried it. No hot water. I just had a cold shower, and I enjoyed it. So when I came out, my cousin said, did you enjoy the hot bath? I said, what hot bath? There was no hot water, just cold. Oh my God. He says the light must have gone off and we forgot to tell you, you have to put the light on. I said, I just enjoyed my shower. I didn't feel any cold or anything.
What brought you to Coventry?
I came, my sister, these cousins were all in London, and I stayed in London, I think, about 2 or 3 weeks, and it was too big a city for me. Because where I come from, Arusha, it was a small town, one main road, houses on both sides, and it's a lovely place. And here in London, I thought it was too big to go here, and buses here, there. It's too big a place. So I thought I'll go up north and see if I come across some place that I like. I had some friends in Coventry. They were known, some friends. So I came down and I said, come to Coventry and then see what it is like. And then if I don't like it, I'll move up north. Because everybody said, if you don't want like London, go up north and wherever you like, you can pick up a place. So I came to Coventry on a Sunday morning, and Sunday morning everything was dead. Everything was quiet. So I told them, I came to the station, I asked somebody how to get to this address. He said, just take a bus and tell the bus driver to let you know when you're in your area. I said, okay. So got onto the bus. There was one main road then from the station went to Broadgate, and one main road stayed. And as soon as I reached the house, he told me, this is your stop. So I got out and went to the address where I was, and went in there, saw my friends. Obviously it was winter time. We stayed in there, had lunch, and it was already dark. So they asked me what I was there for. So looking for a job and trying to see where I can settle. And I said, this looks like very much like what place in Arusha. One main road, few houses, and that's fine. So on that impression, I thought Coventry was like that. So next day, this was on a Sunday when we arrived. Monday morning, he took me down to GEC, and he's looking for a job. He was already working GEC, so he introduced me GEC looking for people. They told me to start at night. Monday morning, I went for interview. He said, start at night. Bring your national insurance card. So I went down to the offices of national insurance, filled up a form, got my card, came home. My friend said, have your dinner and go to sleep early because you have to get up early for this shift. So we used to get up, I think we started the shift at 7, get up at 6 o'clock. It was dark. Went to work till about 5, come out, it was dark. For a couple of weeks, I didn't even know where I was. Going to work in the dark, coming back in the dark, and because it was cold, just sit at home and watch TV, that's all.
Was that quite a... How did you feel with that personally? Because you've been an inspector, and now suddenly you're working in a manufacturing concern.
Well, my concern was to get a job.
Okay.
Find a house, so the rest of the family can come and join me.
Oh.
I didn't want them to come down and live in rented houses and things like that.
So it was survival.
Yeah. So I thought, and the money was good compared to, at that time, I was getting about 30, 35 pounds a week. Mm-hmm. And then...
what did the job entail when you were at GEC? So what were you doing?
I was a machine operator.
Okay.
I never seen a machine. Even when I filled the form up, I just wrote some fictitious names in Tanzania, garages where I worked, and I say I worked as a machine operator. But they were so desperate for staff, they gave me the job.
So what machine was it? Do you remember what it was?
Yeah, they were making these parts for telephones. So, you slide like a plate in there, put your foot on the press would come, mold it into that shape, take it out, and you take the piece. It was like a piecework. The more you do, the more you get.
And these are was it the shape of the old telephone with the ring on it?
Yeah, and all the different parts that they needed. So all was to put something in that will change the shape, or if you want the next shape up, the same product you put, and that would cover, whatever things they needed. But I was working there for 3 months. In 3 months, I think 2 months we were on strike. So I didn't know anything about these strikes business. So when we were working on the machines, and all the machines are going, suddenly I hear mine is the only machine going. All the other machines stopped. So I said, what's going on? And somebody, the other workers came down and he says, Mr. Dar, stop it. I said, why? He said, we are on strike. I said, what strike? He said, didn't somebody tap your shoulder? I said, what, somebody passed by? I thought he meant hello. I just carried on. He said, well, that means stop the work. So we go, what do we do? Sit down, make your tea, and drink your tea. And about a couple of hours later, he said, start. So what happened? Oh, we have negotiated. I said, why couldn't you negotiate in the first place while we are working? He said, no, the management doesn't understand this kind of things. So, okay. So, literally out of 3 months, 2 months, we were on strike only. And then on the radio, on the television, I saw Chief Constable of Coventry, Mr. Pendleton. He said Coventry would soon have colored policemen on the road.
Your eyes must have lit up the moment you heard that.
I said, okay, well, we'll see what happens anyway. So next day, in the morning, about 10 o'clock, I went to police station, Little Park Street. Went to the counter, I said, I'll come for a job. Mr. Pendleton had to say, was on the telly and he wants a colored policeman. So the inspector came down from the training office and took me up to his office. So we sat down there and we started talking and all about where I was from. And he said they want my report from Tanzania. He said, I don't know how long it will take. I said, well, the way things are in Tanzania, you may never get it. But I said, there is a company, bus company, Midland, bus companies in London, the red buses.
Yeah.
I'd applied for a job there, and they wanted the report, same thing. I fill up the form, and I think they must have written it to Tanzania. So by the time when I came back and started working in GC, I got a letter from that bus company saying you can come and start, we got your report. I said, I'm not coming back, I'm here now. So I told the police, I said, if you want a report, write to this bus company. They've already got a report, they can send you a copy and you'll have within no time. And they did that, and they got the report. And
so how long before you went in and you spoke, did you start working? Was it weeks or was it months?
Well, on the same day of the interview, I had to decide inspectors, I seen other, and then I saw the commandant and everybody. And by 4 o'clock, I'd already signed.
Oh, without the report?
Without the report.
Okay.
Yes. They all wanted to know whether I can take the pressure from the media and whether I can stand for pictures and things like that.
So did you have to talk about your experience in Tanganyika?
Yeah, I told them, this was all in the interviews, whatever they asked, what I've been doing, not doing, and things like that. I told them all. So I was okay, everything was that. By lunchtime, the inspector, Mr. Drew, was his name, Inspector Drew, he took me, he said, we're going for a lunch now. So I said, okay. So on the way down to the lunch, he said, I'm going to introduce you to the other boys. Do you mind if I call you Mo? From your name, Mohammed. I said, of course I mind. I said, Mohammed is my religious name. We all brothers are Mohammed. I said, my real name is Yusuf, your middle name. I said, back home, we don't use surname. It's a religious name and my name. If you go to Tanzania, ask for Mohammed, nobody knows. You want Yusuf, they'll bring you to me. I said, Yusuf is my name, which is English translation is Joseph. So if you want to call me by first name, call me Joe. So that's how I was made popular. So I went down to the canteen. So he a lot of boys sitting having lunch and break. So he introduced me there. He says, "This is Joe Dar," and that's they gave me a Welsh name, Yaki Dar, which means good health. So anyway, after that, when I finished there, as I said, by the afternoon I'd already signed, and he says swearing ceremony will be in a couple of days' time. So I said, okay. So he said, but you are hired. You come to the headquarters every morning, 9 o'clock, and they asked me where I was staying. So I told them where I was. He said, you want to move into single men's quarters here? I said, yes. So they showed me a single men's quarter, gave me the quarter there, and I moved in there.
Wow. So this was 15th of March, was this, when this, or
Yeah.
2 days before? Okay.
Yeah.
So you actually started on the 15th of March. In terms of your first day of training, did you get training or was it more media the first
There
day?
was no training for about a month. All I was doing is sitting in the headquarters. They said, just sit down here and pass your time. And they had interviews, people coming from everywhere, all over the world, trying to, and literally local people just sit and talk to them. Yeah.
You want any drink?
No, we're fine, Auntie. Thank you. Thank you so much. What was it, did it feel like putting the uniform on?
I don't know. As I said, my expectation was I was an inspector in the police force, and obviously, the laws, that was a different law. It was different law over here, and obviously the life has changed as well for me. So I didn't know what to expect. Obviously, I can never get that life I had in Tanzania, but I'd come here to start a new life. There was a cut in wages. It had gone down to about 15 pounds.
That's a week.
Yeah, 15 pounds a week.
So you were getting 33.
30, 35 there.
And
Yeah.
suddenly £15 here.
Yes.
Like, why am I doing this?
Yeah. But I think that attention or the fame felt good. At the time when you wear the uniform, you have that power. It says stop means you stopping. So that kind of power, obviously, it gave me a good thing, And then when I started meeting the other police officers, started going on duty with them, and started learning, making friends and things like that, it was good. They put me on duties in different part of the city. The idea was to learn all about the city, so they put me 2-3 weeks on this side and that side.
And all this time, did you think maybe one day I could become an inspector again?
Well, I thought, because I was looking at that time, and there was no other Asians at all, because I was only one. But looking at it, I said, if the time changed and I'm with the police force in about 25-30 years, I think I can become a superintendent. I knew that. If I would have stayed, I would have become a superintendent. But I think beyond superintendent, I wouldn't have considered at that time. Although I've seen now people in higher assistant chief constables, Asians, are there. But when I joined, my mind took me maximum to the superintendent. I said, with my caliber there and with all the restrictions, I said, I can still make a superintendent.
What kind of equipment, do you remember the equipment you were using that you had? So obviously there was your uniform that you had.
Yeah.
What was on the buttons? Do you remember what was on the buttons?
Well, just the Coventry City Police Force.
He says Coventry
Yeah.
City Police Force. And were those chrome buttons, were they?
Yeah.
Or were they? Okay. And did you have a process for that, where you were kind of, I'm not saying you didn't polish your shoes in Tanzania, but did you have a process?
No, in Tanzania we polished our shoes.
Okay.
It took hours to do it.
Really?
Yeah, because when we are doing new shoes, you have to put kiwi, that's the shoe polish.
Yeah.
Thick layer, and we have to burn it.
Burn it?
Burn the kiwi. And then with cloth on your finger and water, we have to sort of rub the whole shoe.
So you'd put the kiwi on top of it, and then you'd set that alight with a match.
Yeah, not the whole shoe, just the front.
Okay.
Yeah, and it was, you know, it was, after you finished it, you could literally see your face in there.
Wow.
That's how it was, that part of the training there. But over here, we didn't have that.
I bet you had the best polished shoes here, though. You must.
Yes, we had here, but as I said, you know, it wasn't nothing like Tanzania. But I did clean it like we used to clean it in Tanzania to make sure my training comes to some use.
Did you? So, what equipment did you have with you here in the UK? So you had a truncheon that you said
Yes,
that
a
you had.
truncheon, yeah.
You had a whistle.
No whistles here.
No whistles
No
here.
whistle here.
Okay. So what would you do if you needed to call somebody? Shout.
So there was, you're always going in groups of twos.
Mm-hmm.
So there's always some help with you. And the radios, pocket radios, came, I think, about a year later.
Okay.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. So prior to that, in Coventry, did you have to ever go to the blue box to report a crime? Yeah. Do you remember what road it was on?
Well, every beat had their own, you know, in the town centre, in Corporation Street, we had one. Hillfields, that's where I used to be there. They had one. So everywhere they had one box. Every beat had a box.
Right.
So if you want to take some weight off your feet, you go and sit in the box. They had a telephone if you want to report back to tell them that you're safe, you're okay. You do that.
Uh-huh. Did you have to do that regularly then, or was that just kind of choice where you have to go back every hour or 2 hours to the box to say everything's okay? Or
I think what we're doing a round of the beach, and every time we came back, we went into the box and reported. And when the shift changed over, then we had to go down to the box. Whoever the new officer comes in, pass any information or any details, give it to them.
so what did your first role? I know you talked when you first started. You were literally sitting around and just doing things, and then obviously, what did your first role kind of entail? Was it walking around on the beat?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So first, I think 2-3 weeks, I was working in the city centre with the other fellow officer because they had to get somebody to go with me to show me the tricks. And
What are those tricks?
I don't know where most of the questions people ask me in Coventry City Centre, where is the cathedral, where are the toilets, where are the restrooms, and things like that. And as we went along, and if you see somebody, the experience officer will tell me to mark that face, he's a crook. You know, mark this, go down to the shop. See that shop? If you fancy a cup of tea at night, just knock that. They always have the kettle on for police officers. Things like that, telling you what usually they do on the beat.
Little tricks of the trade.
Yeah.
Go past the market, get an apple, get an orange.
Yeah.
How did you find the response of people generally, in the sense, because there was a bit of racial tension maybe in that period. I mean, were people kind of quite accepting of you?
Yeah, because I think I was a lucky one because I had the experience from Tanzania. With my helmet and shoes, it gave me extra height or nearly. I was 5'11" myself. It took me to 6 something. And as I said, because I had so much publicity in the newspapers, everybody who saw me, there goes the first colour policeman. And a lot of them came and shook hands with me, congratulating me, you know, wishing me, and things like that. So everything was fine with me.
So it wasn't. Was there that thing of different communities? So did the Asian community react to you differently? Was there a sense of pride, or were there a case of, oh, you're now on the other side, you're not on our side, or you know, skepticism? So you're suddenly in that strange kind of situation where you're kind of, I'm still one of you.
No, I don't think I had that problem, because as I said, with the Asians, you look at person, he's Gujarati, so I'll speak to them in Gujarati. As I say, Punjabi, I'll speak to him Punjabi, through Pakistani, I'll use my name Yusuf, so they're happy with me. The English comes, I'm Joe, so they're happy with that. So things, I try to keep everybody happy. And so it was all right. But people who joined after me, number 2 was from Birmingham, Raf Ramadar. He had a lot of problems. Number 3 was from Anita Malik. And he had a lot of problems. They dumped their houses and things like that. I think I escaped that because I moved into police quarters, single men's quarters, and that was within the police station boundary. So nobody could come and do these things. But the other 2, as I said, they had tough time.
So yeah, because I think did you speak to Ralph? I think
Yes,
I read it somewhere.
Because I sent him a letter of congratulations, and Malik as well. So we all 3 met together. And, because we were those in the beginning, the first 3. So we tried to keep in touch with each other.
So that must have been quite difficult in the sense that you've really settled in, you're not having any of these issues. And then Ralph, I think, I'm not sure about Malik as well, but that whole thing of experiencing racism, swastikas being put on buildings. Did somebody try and burn a building down as well? I can't remember. The letters from the far right as well, threatening. You didn't have any of that.
No.
And that's because you were in the single, because you were in a contained space, which as opposed to living outside.
Yeah.
How did those guys deal with that?
I don't know. They reported obviously down to, but they had to set whatever they were getting it. They had police officer on beats looking at, trying to keep an eye on them. And then later on, they also moved. Ralph moved. I think he was in Leamington. He moved to Birmingham. Malik was in Nuneaton. I don't know where he moved. Obviously moved to houses. But
my camera's just died on me, but I've got the sound recording on here anyway, so that's fine. I have got a charger, but no, that's fine. I'll keep recording there anyway. So, in fact, didn't realise we've been recording an hour. I'll hear the sound. Don't worry about the camera. I'll just do it on the audio there that we've got. Do you remember your first case where you arrested somebody?
the only problem here was, we were working doing the beat. If you arrest somebody, the CID used to come and take over. So, person you arrested, you don't know what happened to him. It's only week later or months later you see him and you talk to him and say, hello, how did it go? He said, I went to the court and the judge told me to be a good boy.
Okay.
That's all. What happened, we did. And that's, I didn't like that.
You wanted to be the prosecutor in the court, didn't you?
Well, I wanted to go through with that whole case from the beginning to the end, know exactly what's going on. But because they pleaded guilty, I was not needed in the court, nothing to give evidence or anything.
Do you remember who you charged or arrested first on suspicion?
How some bloke trying to steal something from a house. He was on top of the building and arrested him. As I said, arrested him. You call next thing CID is there, taken over, and then
So was it a case of, did you just see him on top of the house and go, oh, what are you doing up there?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And then he came down and he had all this stuff in his hands. And next thing, 5 minutes, the CID is there. And that's it, they take him. I don't know what happened. And then same thing with somebody stolen a motorbike. And they just passed me the number of the motorbike. And next thing I see the motorbike is up there. And it was going faster. So I stopped the car. I said, follow that motorbike. So I stopped him and got him. Next thing, I said, CID comes and takes over.
So that must have been quite frustrating for you then,
it
really.
was. I said, this is what I was thinking. I said, with my kind of experience, they will use me somewhere where I can become very handy. But they didn't. They didn't use it. As I said, they just followed their procedure. And that's why when I left the police force, I decided to become a private investigator.
Private investigator. With the equipment that you had, so I was just saying you had your truncheon, you had no whistle. What other things did you have a notebook then, or did you?
Yeah, we had a notebook. Yeah.
Yeah, and was it a big biro as well?
Yeah.
It was a big biro. What other things did you have then?
I think the radio, I think it came a year later.
Okay.
Yeah, the little blue radios.
Yeah.
But they always...
So you must have gained. Where's my car? No, you don't get a car. Yeah, but wait there.
No, the cars. They used to the sergeant who was on the checking up all the constable. They would come and stop. Come and sit in the car. Take some weight off your feet. So they'll take me on my beat in their car and then drop me somewhere and carry on going and seeing other officers.
Gosh.
Yeah.
So were there any strange things that people asked you for, as a police officer?
Yeah, there's a lot of things happen, But my joke was about 4 o'clock in the morning, I saw this car. It didn't have the lights at the back. I mean, I'm passing my time. I said, I just stopped him and warned him that you need new bulbs. So I stopped. It turned out to be a Jamaican. So as soon as I stopped him, he said to me, "You only stopped me because of my color." I said, I parked the car there, come out, brought him out of the car to the street light. I said, look. He didn't know what to say.
Oh gosh! Oh yeah, and what? He just said thank you and then went.
Yeah, well, as I told him, just change your lights. Yeah, otherwise you'll be cursing some other white officer.
Was there ever that element of whereby people saying hello and talking to you, whereby it was almost like it was the first, if they shook your hand, it was the first time that they'd shaken the hand of somebody who was non-white, almost kind of, oh, I've experienced something different today.
I don't know, they just wish me good luck and things like that,
Yeah.
That was mostly, I would say 90% of wish me good luck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What kind of things would you do? Would you just kind of nod your head and kind of go, hello, thank you, have a good day? Or what
Yeah,
did you?
those were the routine things at the time.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Do you still remember doing all the signals that you used to do?
Yes.
For the traffic?
Yeah, for traffic.
What were those signals? Do you remember doing?
Well, mostly these were, they put you on a zebra crossing because the schools are going to come out. So you have to make sure the traffic stop because same as nowadays, they never stop until they see a policeman.
Yeah.
So that's what we used to do, stop them and get the children to go across safely and then...
Is this before the flashing lights?
Yes.
Before, okay, so you've done there, just stop the traffic, let the kids cross and then kind of do the other traffic.
Older people, get them to cross safely, like that.
Brilliant. So as you said, you've been doing this. You're not doing the same role that you've done previously in Tanzania. So frustrating for you?
Yeah, it was, but obviously, there were new things I was learning. It's not that I wasn't learning, Even beside with the CID coming in or not coming in, I took interest because I was brought up like that. I wanted to investigate and find more, so I used to, and every time there was something new, something all the time happening. There's a family in Canley, not so Canley, in Belgreen. Can't remember the name. They were very notorious family. The police knew them. They were, bad in their list. It was very bad.
In terms of crime that they
crime,
did?
Yeah, crime and hitting somebody or
Okay.
knifing and things like that. I'm trying to think of the name. It was very notorious. Even today they are known as bad by that name. Anyway, I was passing there, and the wife told me said they're having domestic problem. So went in there, and I think husband and wife was having some arguments and things like that. And I tried to, calm them down. And in the meantime, wife went in, made a cup of tea for me, got biscuits. So I'm sitting there, and then I had the radio then, and then the radio asked me where I was. I said, well, I'm here. I think then in this family, I'm just here doing a domestic problem with this family. I said, okay. And 5 minutes later, there were about 10 police cars surrounded the house. So they all came in. What's the problem? He said, you are in here on your own. I said, yeah, just discussing, having a cup of tea. So that's there, because for them that family was, notorious, and they didn't want anything to happen.
Oh, because they thought something might bad happen,
Yeah.
and you didn't even know who this. But were you aware of the reputation of the family,
No,
or only
no.
later on,
Only later on.
where it's like, oh, okay, you were in the wrong.
Yeah.
You shouldn't have gone into this particular house itself. So you made that decision to leave and become a private investigator.
Yeah.
Was that again a big decision for you, or was that an easy decision?
Because, you see, I got fed up. As I said, I wanted to do something with my experience. And everything for me to go in the morning telling people where the toilets are, this was getting boring. And eventually they even changed the system that you can operate from your house. That even made it even worse, because you are in that beat around your area, where you live. And if they have anything to tell you, anybody, you come get the information, pass it on.
Going to the box, you go to the box, or
No, there was no box. You just work from your house, and people can come there if they want, or you go and see the neighbors there, try to get some information and just pass it on. So I thought it wasn't me. Then I got my brother. He had come back he was the last one to come from Tanzania, and he was looking for a job. So I said, why don't you join the police force?
Yeah.
It might suit you.
Yeah.
So he went to join, and he was about an inch shorter than what they wanted. But because of me already there, and he is also good knowledge of English, and he done good jobs there, he managed to get in. And then I think he lasted 14 years. He became sergeant. And before he was going to become an inspector, I got him to resign, because by then I was in business and I wanted manpower, and I told him to come and join me, get the police force.
So what was it like in terms of you becoming that private investigator?
Well, at the time, while on my beat, I used to come across a travel agent, and I used to go and sit there and talk, and I used to see how much money they were making. So I said, if I set up an office and just as a travel agent, you may be able to make some more money than what I'm getting now, and probably find some interest in things that I'm going to do. And because I've been in the police force, I say, if the office is there, I can do other things with it, including private investigations. So that's how I set up an office. Now, in the beginning, the police forces, surrounding police forces, they used me. If they had any case involving all Asians, where they couldn't speak the language and things like that, they would ask me, can you come and help? So although I was supposed to work with the other white officers to investigate that matter, I didn't involve them. I just got statements from my view because I knew what to do. I got the statement, completed the case, here is the case.
Wow. So you almost became your own boss.
Yeah, so, and I could pick and choose. I mean, I did a divorce case. Somebody asked me, solicitor asked me, says, mine wants it was a Jamaican black people. He said, we're looking for some evidence, and we want a confession. Can you do it? Why not? So got up about 6 o'clock in the morning, went down to knock on this house. bloke came down and I told him I was an investigator and I'd like to talk to him. So he says, all right. So he made me sit in the lounge and I think he went and took his girlfriend or whoever, put in another room. And then he came, he said, right, I live here, she lives there. I said, there's nothing between us. So I said, look, I'm not stupid. So when you left the room, I followed you. I've seen what you've taken her out from that room and put in this room. Although nothing like that happened. I just bluffed my way. I said, look, I'm here to help you. I said, you like her, she likes you. Just sign this document admitting that, you know.
It was was it adultery? So
exactly.
So was this instigated by the lady then? Did the lady contact you then or solicitor company contact?
The solicitor company.
Okay,
Yeah.
On behalf of the lady.
Yes.
to find that.
So I did that, passed the case on. That's it, all done. So it was something interesting I could do.
What other kind of cases did you do? Did you do animals, missing dogs, or anything like that? Or
No. Mostly I was involved, or Asians were involved. Mostly fighting cases and affrays and things like that. You know.
Okay.
And, couple of cases where they have stolen. They've been caught for shoplifting. They want my help.
so what would you do? Do you remember any of those particular cases, shoplifting or something being stolen?
All I used to say, find out from your solicitor what kind of evidence they're looking for. If I can find something, you know. So I used to find the evidence, what the solicitor wants to help in their case, and I would pass it on.
The missing piece in the jigsaw.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And then, as I said, you know, beside that, then people were coming and they said they're looking for businesses. Can we find them a big business? Because I was there, I had an office at overheads. I would take any kind of thing. And this Bengali bloke was looking for a restaurant. I said, I'll find you a restaurant. So I found him 3 restaurants. And by the time he came, he said, I don't want that, but I'll have this one. So he got the restaurant. And a couple of months later, I got a letter that said, you can have the second one now. He said, no, I don't want second. I said, what kind of a business it is, a restaurant? He said, oh, very good business, very profitable, this and that. Fine. I said, I'll buy this restaurant. Will you run it? He said, well, I won't run it, but we can start in partnership. I said, okay. So I got the restaurant. It was a closed restaurant for the captain's table. So I took over, and he was a Bengali. So both his old and this restaurant were quite close together. So he used to order stuff from my restaurant and take the stuff to his other restaurant. So in 6 months' time, we closed the business. Didn't close it. The restaurant was making loss. So I said, Mr. Ali, come here, sit down here. I said, here, we just had this restaurant. It's busier than your restaurant, but we are making a loss here. So he says, I don't know how. I said, well, I know how. I said, look, we paid 2,000 for this restaurant 6 months ago. You paid 1,000 and I paid, that was for the lease. He said, yes. I said, look, today the price is 4,000. Either you give me 2,000 and I'll walk out, or you take 2,000 and you get out. He said, I haven't got money. I said, all right. I wrote a check and gave it to him. Here's your 2,000, get lost. Next day I went to the bank manager. I said to the bank manager, I've written a check for 2,000 pounds yesterday. I haven't got any money. Can you see through that it goes through? So he asked me the reason and I told him. He said, okay. He passed the check. So I got that. And then I started, what can I do? I needed definitely a partner to pay that kind of 2,000 pounds into the kitty. So I met a friend of mine, Mr. Patel, still alive. And I told him, I said, are you interested in this business? He said, yes, very much. I said, 2,000 is the price. If you want to come in, I need the money quickly. He said, you have to convince my father first that it's a profitable business. I said, how can, excuse me, how can I convince him when in 6 months' time I close down with a loss. He said, that's going to be a problem then. And as I got the restaurant which I bought, it had gone bankrupt, but the books were still in the restaurant. So I said, this John Rees, who had it before me, he made a fortune out of this place. These are his books. His father studied the books. He said, yes, very profitable business. I said, yes, can I have the money now? He said, no, you can't have the money now. Why? He said, this is our month when we don't spend money.
Okay.
Go back to the bank manager. I said, I've got a partner, but they won't pay me until this date. He says, it's okay. So that's how we got there. So we changed the name from Captain's Table to, when I started, as an Indian restaurant called Shalimar. Then from Shalimar, I said, bring it back to Captain's Table. So I advertised for staff and I got all the old staff back. But they all came down and I didn't have to do, they did everything. And we started the restaurant.
Gosh.
Yeah.
And you're still doing it, were you still doing investigating then, or did you
No, then I had a choice to close because I couldn't cope with both of them. So as soon as the Bengali chef was losing money, then I had to leave that work to come and concentrate
on the restaurant.
So,
did you have any funny cases to investigate as a private investigator, where you're kind of like,
I don't know, I did so many things. Mostly my job was, I was more helping people than, because...
So you're almost like a negotiator to a certain degree, where you're kind of going in there, finding out what the problem is and then solving it.
Yes, solving. But then when it came to money, I was too soft not to ask them for money before. And once the job is done, you never see them again. Mm-hmm. So that was the problem with that business. So if you trust them, if you ask money in advance, they won't give you. And if you take some money, you think it's not enough because it lasted into more hours working. So it wasn't, I did whatever I could to help people. I helped everybody. I haven't left anybody in Coventry to Coventry.
Yeah. No, brilliant, Joe. I think really that's kind of covered loads of things that I wanted to talk about, really. That's it, really. I think that's been really, really helpful. I mean, now you're a successful, you've been and still are a successful businessman. You've done retail. I think you've done exporting as well. So any dreams to go back into the investigation field, or?
I don't know, to hold down 79, be 80 next year.
Okay.
So among Asians, we only do for children.
Yeah.
Everything what we make here, we think of children. We don't think of ourselves, how we can enjoy ourselves.
Do you kind of pinch yourself a little bit in the sense of, as you say, you're coming on to 80 next year, and you look back, whereas at that time, yes, you were the first coloured police officer, as they would say, where we're sitting here and you're suddenly going, wait there, this is 56 years ago, is it? Or is it 56 years ago? Yeah.
Really?
65, 56 years ago, we're coming up to whereby you were the first the coloured police officer. Do you pinch yourself going, wow, I don't...
Not really. No, what from the time I've been born here and started my first work, I've always enjoyed whatever I was doing. I've never got bored. And my sons were in London working in bank and auditing and things like that. Every day, I'm bored, Dad. I'm bored. I said, how can you be bored?
Yeah.
I said, I have never been bored. No, I can't remember a single day when I say I am bored. I've never been bored. I loved my work in Tanzania, and I did it 24 hours. Didn't matter to me what time of the day and night they called me. Same thing over here in the police force, in the restaurant business, in the investigation business. I went into factory business, clothing factories and things like that. And every work I enjoyed, in spite of all the pressures and things like that, I enjoyed.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Just a little thing about your investigative work that you did, whether it was a private investigator or whether it was in the police force. Did you have a methodology that you kind of followed where you went, Right. Step one. This is in your own mind. Did you have a process that you did or you followed, or was it just on the
No,
job, whatever?
every case was different. In my investigation, in my private, the best case was one from Birmingham. This man came to me. He says, he was a Pakistani bloke. He says, we got a young man in our family. He has been arrested by police for using drugs. And he said they arrested him. And he said, we know he doesn't take drugs. We know everything. But he says, there's another Pakistani bloke who's a very bad one. He's in with the police. And if he doesn't like you, he plants drugs on you and then call the police and the police take them away. And in the case of drugs, the onus is on the person on whom drugs are found. They have to prove they are not his drugs. The police just have to say, we went and searched, the drugs are found on your possession. And then that is up to the other party. That's police case is finished. So say, this is what has happened now, but we don't know what to do. And everybody asking them to plead guilty, they'll get a smaller sentence. And what do you think? I said, well, if their drugs are his, I suggest he pleads guilty. If the drugs are not his, he shouldn't be pleading guilty. He says, okay, I'll go and tell them. So he came back to me, he says, can you take this case? Says in Birmingham, I'm going back many years, things were cheaper then. I said, it cost you £50, plus the solicitor's fees. He said, okay. So I came down and I said, no family member will interfere with me. I do it my way. So he said, okay. So went down to the family. I said, I'm going to appoint a solicitor, Mr. Faber in Birmingham. He used to be very popular. He's probably still his old man now. I went to see Mr. Faber. Mr. Faber, I got this case of drugs. This is somebody's planted drugs on him. And I want you to fight. He said, £50. Put it in my table. So I told the relatives, give him £50. They gave him £50. And he took me in his Rolls Royce. He said, have you had a ride in Rolls Royce? I said, if not, I'm having it now. We went to prison, went in there to interview this boy. We interviewed the boy, he looked like, he hasn't done anything. So solicitor asked, what is your opinion? So my opinion, he said, innocent. I said, okay. So then the case date came, went to the court, and then Mr. Faber said to me, Mr. Dar, I'm sorry, I can't help. He said, there's nothing in it. He's been found with the drugs. He was at work. They went, looked in his coat pocket, the drugs were there. And there's nothing else we can do. I said, Mr. Faber, when I came to your office, I told you, this is the case. You say, put £50 here. What did I give you that £50 for? To fight this case? He said, yes, but I have no chance. I said, whether you have chance or not, you fight this case. I said, okay. So he started fighting the case. So halfway through the case, the magistrate then asked Mr. Faber, why are you fighting this case? Mr. Faber said, we think these drugs have been planted on him and somebody is not happy and wants to get him into trouble. So he says, okay, Mr. Faber, let's take a 10 minutes break. And then they gave a letter to Mr. Faber. Mr. Faber, here's a letter we have received, anonymous. It has come from somebody. It says this boy is a culprit. He is very bad character. He goes to cafes, spoils the girls, gives them drugs, and things like that. So Mr. Faber got very, somebody's trying to put him into trouble. So Mr. Faber called the policeman. He said, have you got any record of this man? No. Have you seen him visiting cafes? No. Any girls seen with him? No. Has he got any record? No. So that man was acquitted. So then finished, took him home, and then I was expecting my money now. So waiting till my feet and I go. And he said, Mr. Dar, now today's Saturday, can you come back tomorrow, Sunday, to get your money? I said, yeah, go to Coventry, come back again, driving, it all costs money here. Anyway, I said, okay, I'll come back on Sunday. So I went back on Sunday, and the house was full of all the Pakistanis. Everybody there, you know. So he said, yeah, tea, samosas, everything being served, had dinner, everything. I said, Miss, I want to go now. I've been here half a day today without any fee. He said, okay. Everybody comes and shakes my hand, £5, £10 in my hand like that. So, you know, so about 200 people putting, yeah, I think even pound notes were there, but they were just putting money and I just kept putting. I counted when I was on the way home, nearly £300 in my pocket.
Wow.
Yeah. So this man who introduced me to that family, he said to me, I don't know, Mr. Dar, how you got him. I say, if I tell you that, I'll be in prison. Let's forget it, how he got it.
No, that's a lovely story. That is lovely. So helping in terms of the community. No, that's great. Yeah, that's wonderful. It's been a great interview. Unless you want to add something else that you want to say, or
Well, as I said, things keep coming back.
Yeah,
You know, the more you talk, the more things keep.
So you can kind of remember, really, in terms of that. Yeah, maybe I think I'm quite happy because you talked about the process, the procedures, you working at GEC. You had servants in Tanzania as well.
Sorry.
You had servants who worked for you when you know.
At home, no, we didn't. No, we definitely had servants. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, did you ever have to use a gun? Did you use a gun to?
Well, I almost killed somebody in Tanzania.
Accidentally or?
Not accidentally. What happened, we raided this place. They were making illegal liquor there. And there must have been about 10, 15 people. When we raided and they all ran. It's like a, bush place. They all ran. And I was young then, about 20, I think. I got a pistol, I had a pistol. So I aimed at one of them and I pulled the trigger and the gun wouldn't work. Now, I'm sure if the trigger would have gone, that man would be dead. And suddenly it struck me. I said, what the hell, you want to kill a man for the sake of illegal liquor?
Yeah.
I said, thank God the gun didn't work. But that was my nearest, But animals, I used to do a lot of shooting. Even beside, as I said, feeding the prisoners there, which was, small animals. But I used to do big game hunting there because I was there already. You have to buy a license to do it, so I just go and buy a license, keep it there, kill a lot of zebras, then you collect the skin, and we used to sell it there. You get extra money.
Sell them retail or sell whatever you wanted to sell on. No, it's so you had the life in terms of the quality of life.
Yeah.
In the UK, a very different style in terms of quality of life.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you talk about using the gun and it not going off. That was good. But did you ever have any animals that came into your towns where suddenly it became a threat, or?
The only time when I was hunting.
Okay.
Yeah, I had a shotgun then. And what I used to, when I used to go on these trips, on the way back, always used to kill a deer or something. That was to bring the meat back, and then the whole street, we just get the meat and distribute to all the streets so they can have something. It's just a small town, so everybody. So,
yeah. What was the name of the town?
Arusha.
Arusha. How do I spell
Arusha?
Okay.
Yeah. So we lived there and just we sort of all neighbors. You just get a piece and pass it on. So they have a dinner for that day or the next day.
So there's a real community feel.
Yeah. So what happened on the way back, I saw this deer enter up, and I had only one bullet left, shotgun. So I fired. I hit the deer, but it was like small pellets going into his head, and he must have gone berserk. So he really came charging at me, you know. And I knew there was no other, that was the only bullet I had. So I turned the gun around, and as it came near, I hit him in the head and got the gun stuck between his horn, and I twisted the gun, and the animal fell down. I got my knife and do the halal business.
No, well, at least you survived. Maybe that's where you learned using the butt.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. No.
And then in the bush, as I said, lions. I wasn't afraid of the lions. I used to, sometimes when the mother goes feeding, they left the cubs, I go and play with the cubs. I left all the photographs back in Tanzania.
So you used to play with the little
Little cubs, yes, with a stick, and they just do that. And the lions, lions, when I see, I know when they had their meal. If they're hungry, I wouldn't bother touching them. But if they already had their meal, I used to have the Land Rover, set up my camera, click it on, and run after the lions. And then get the picture taken itself,
Yeah, self-picture.
Yeah.
Wow.
They've done loads of things. I can't even remember now. Memory is also going.
So when you're here, did you kind of, because obviously you had a gun there, you had a pistol. Do you remember the make of the pistol that you had?
Smith and Wesson.
Smith and Wesson.
Yeah.
Is it? Okay. And that was where you had to load the pistol itself. So
no, the pistol was already loaded.
Okay.
But it just got stuck.
Oh, okay. And it's one bullet at a time that you had to load.
Yeah.
It wasn't a revolver.
No, it was a revolver.
Oh, it was a revolver. Was it? Okay.
Just one, and it just got stuck.
Oh, okay.
So thank God for that.
No.
Otherwise, it would have been on murder charge.
So when you were here in the UK police, did you expect to get a gun as well? Were you thinking, are they going to give me a gun?
Well, in the beginning they not, but then after about a year, they wanted, because crime was getting in, they wanted people with guns. So they asked your experience and things like that. And I put my experience in and everything, that I can use a gun and everything. But they didn't select me for that.
Okay.
I thought maybe being a black man, I'd be a target.
Wow.
So best is to leave him alone.
Did you have training when you were in Tanzania in terms of shooting with the gun?
Yeah.
What was your scores? Were you what targets? Was it a case of aiming at a deer, or did you have that old thing that we always see?
I used to be very good on target practice.
Okay.
Yes, I was always
Bullseye.
Yeah, always.
Yeah.
It was rifles mostly there, not with pistols, because rifle was the main thing.
And did that have a telescope on it, or was it just no?
Just like that.
Do you know what the rifle was, the make or the model? Or
I don't know.
You don't know? No, that's fine. No, Joe, listen, it's been absolutely wonderful. Really appreciate you taking time out. I've got your number. You don't mind if I have to?
No, anytime.
Yeah,
just
it's been so helpful.
anytime.
We're recording it and the video's kind of stopped
If I'm
halfway.
not there, I'll, come back. To
Yeah,
you.
no, definitely.
Yeah.
Thank you. Really appreciate it. Let me just... Great.